So I want to welcome folks to the last of our three-part series that we've been doing with Suzanne Francisco here on supported decision-making here. So this is part 3 of the series. For those of you that are listening on our Achieving Independence channel, we also have parts 1 and 2, and also for the folks that are listening, Ellen, who will be monitoring questions, we'll make sure that we give you not only the materials from today's presentation, but also the links to sections 1 and 2. Just a little background here. This has been a very thorough presentation, and we've learned a lot from Suzanne. And so today what we're doing is she's going to talk a little bit about how you can use supported decision-making as an alternative to conservatorships here, and also how to put a team together. Anyway, with that, Suzanne, I'm looking forward to learning more about supported decision-making. So what can you tell us?
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, everyone, for taking the time out to participate and listen today. As he said, this is the 3rd in a series of webinars on supported decision-making. And for those who have tuned in previously, I'm trying not to duplicate too much information here, but I do want to give a little bit of background on myself again to those who are listening so that you know how I came to be here with you today. And so basically, I grew up with a sister that was juvenile diabetic. She became a juvenile diabetic at age 12. And later we found out she had bipolar. And I always want to tell this story because it really relates to supported decision-making and why I'm here today. And so basically she was a very strong self-advocate, and she was not conserved. She lost the function of many of her organs over the years, and she became blind, and she was in a wheelchair. And at one point, she found herself in a group home against her will. And being the strong self-advocate that she was, and with my help from California, she was able to get herself into an adapted apartment and to live independently with supports and services that she needed for the most part. And she was able to volunteer and speak to young people who had juvenile diabetes and share her story to help them. And it was very challenging for her, and she was not conserved, and she taught me a lot about advocacy. So I always like to share that about myself. And then unbeknownst to me, I also became a mother of 3 children that have special needs. They have a rare form of congenital muscular dystrophy and autism. And so then I became a disability rights and special education advocate. I hired an advocate, and he hired me. And so I began as a special education advocate, working with families and individuals from age 3 to 22, and worked with Foresa Consulting and Advocacy. I'm currently with KPS for Parents. And my mission really is to advance the lives of people with disabilities and those who are most vulnerable, so that they're self-expressed and direct their own lives to the maximum of their abilities. And so how I came to know about supported decision-making, I attended a session by Jonathan Martinez, who won the Landmark Cakes for supported decision-making, and also works with the National Resource Center for Supported Decision-Making. So I learned a lot about everyone having the right to make their own choices, and that there are alternatives to conservatorship. And we've, as Stephen mentioned, we've done several webinars prior to today, and it really gives a lot of background on supported decision-making. I am going to explain more, but it's really important that you access that information. I think there's about 140 slides between the last 2 webinars, and I will make sure I forward those along with these slides so you can access that information. The first webinar, we talked about what supported decision-making is, and how IDEA, transition planning, and vocational rehabilitation, along with person-centered planning, can help to implement the supports and services that people need to be independent. And we went on to talk about healthcare and medical and financial planning for people with disabilities and how we can help them to be autonomous. And we also touched on the ABLE Act in that last webinar. So where can you find this information right now? You can find it on the Dale Law Firm. I am fairly new at KPS for Parents, and this will be up on our website very soon. So today I'm going to ask you to be interactive and to put your thinking caps on and be ready to participate. Because today we're going to talk about actually implementing supported decision making and setting the wheels in motion and setting the wheels of opportunity and independence, empowerment, and change in people's lives, people with disabilities. And so if you're at this point now, you know what supported decision making is, and we'll talk more in detail again about that. Supported decision making is a paradigm, it's a way of thinking. So how do we set the wheels in motion? How do we go into action? And if you're a parent, these things, opportunity, independence, and empowerment, are some of the things that we dream for our children. And likewise, if you're a provider or a friend, a supporter, or an attorney of a client, we have dreams for people with disabilities. And so what other dreams do you have for someone that you're thinking about in your life? So I'd like you to keep somebody in mind or several people in mind that may be somebody you're supporting or someone you know that has a disability. And what other dreams do you have for them, for this person? And more importantly, what are the dreams they have for themselves? And I'm really going to give you some time as we go through here to think about it and to keep this person in mind and what those things can be for you and for this person. So, do you know what their dreams are? Do we have the tools that we need for that person in their toolbox? How can we know what their dreams are? What do you think is missing? And do you even know what's missing? What is it that they need? What do they need? One of the tools could be a support or service that could get your individual closer to identifying and expressing their hopes, their dreams, their interests, and their challenges, and what's important to them, and the opportunities that they wish were available. So, what are those opportunities? What are those opportunities, and how can we find them? How can we better know our exceptional individuals' desires and begin to set the wheels in motion, the wheels of life? It's a good question, right? This is what we're all asking ourselves as we're implementing supported decision making. And so in order to answer that question, I'm going to ask you to ask yourselves a question. And have you ever had a dream come true? Think about that. What was that dream for you? What did it take for your dream to come true? Did it take work and consistency and goals and a map, structure? Did it happen overnight? Likely, if it was an important dream, it probably took some time. Did you have a plan for getting there? And was it easy or was it challenging? Likely, if you're thinking of a dream that was really important to you, that you were able to achieve and have it come true, it was likely something that was challenging. It makes it more meaningful for you. So how do we learn and grow? Did you make mistakes? I know all of us here are perfect, but every once in a while we make a mistake. And really they're important. They're important. They help us achieve our dreams and tell us which direction we need to go. So as you're thinking about your personal dream and something that you achieved, an outcome you had in your life, did you make mistakes, and did you learn from those mistakes? What was it that you learned about yourself? And did you have a circle of support? Likely you had a mentor, someone to give you a hand up, steer you in the right direction. You may have asked for help, sought out some assistance. What was that process like for you? So as you think more about this accomplishment and someone that you care about, how did it feel? The more challenging the goal, the sweeter it is, right? You know that feeling that you've conquered your fears, you've jumped over the obstacles. We look back at the path that we laid to success with so much pride. That sweet victory. We did it. So, thinking again about this sweet victory, what did you believe? What did you learn simply from walking the path of building skills? Accepting yourself where you are. In order to embark on this journey of goals and planning in your life, you had to start somewhere. And believing that you could get there, to that dream. So, you had a goal in mind, you're starting to build skills, you're accepting yourself where you are, you're embarking on this journey, and you're going to get there. But it takes more than that. It takes being in action, it takes commitment, and it takes a support team for every single one of us, for all of us who have achieved something in our lives. Anything that's really meaningful, most likely all of these things were necessary for you. So as you ask yourself, what did it take for my dream? What did it take for my dream to come true? And the truth is, it takes whatever it takes. It takes all of us doing the sometimes unpredictable, whatever it takes. Because when it's meaningful for you, and you have a plan of action, and you've achieved your dream, that's likely what you did, whatever it takes. So it's crucial that we, enjoy and learn as we travel on this journey as a parent to children with special needs and as an advocate working directly with families and their children and individuals with disabilities. It's important that we enjoy and learn from each other, remind each other that our well-being is a priority, and that we offer each other assistance, that we're all on the same team, that we share our ideas, our tools, and a hand up and a path, and we say, here, this way. And we each have our own experience with our individual, and it's really important that we help each other and give each other a hand up as we move along. So what we're talking about here is that we are the same. People with disabilities have dreams and desires just like the rest of us. Just like the rest of us, it's going to take what it takes, and it's going to be as individual as each person according to the maximum extent of their unique abilities. Every person is different. So for you and for me, the shape of our dreams is as distinctive as each person and as distinctive as the fulfillment of each person's needs. And so I looked up the word unique and found that it said unique is not repeatable, it's rare, it's uncommon, it's distinct, it's special. And that's exactly how self-determination and supported decision-making is implemented. So this all sounds like self-determination. Choosing when that we get up can include when we get up, what we're going to eat today, where we're going to go, what career we're going to have, who my life partner might be, what do you want to do and be for the rest of your life. And I hope you heard where you have control over your life, meaning where you have input, where you make an impact in your own life, and how that feels to be able to do that. So conservatorship. Conservatorship is a means where there is a clear set of civil rights that are removed from a person with exceptional abilities, and that is in order to protect them. That is, quote, to protect them. It can be necessary. It should be the last resort, in our opinion. So a conservatorship can potentially make decisions for an individual, take control of where and how they live and who they are with, who they socially can hang out with, and who are their friends, if they have relationships, sexual contacts. And this is according to how a conservatorship defines itself. So we'll talk about whether that actually always comes to fruition. But this is how it's defined. So it can control a person's education, their vocational training, whether they can get married or have a domestic partnership, medical treatment, finances, and whether the person can enter contracts. And so I do want to say that we will never say that there is never a need for conservatorship. So really, I think the important thing here is that we look at alternatives and that a conservatorship is the last resort. So alternatively, what can we do to really help protect people with disabilities? We can start by teaching them skills and offering them assistance in the areas where they need help. There may be areas that they need complete assistance, maybe medically or financially. Every person is different. So I'm going to ask you to do me a favor and get a piece of paper out, or figuratively get a piece of paper out in your mind and write the letter C on it, the big C. So now that you have your piece of paper, I want you to think about your favorite food. That could be chocolate, it could be ice cream, it could be potato chips. What is your favorite food? And where is your favorite place to be? Is it in the sun? Where do you like to go? And who are you with? Who are your favorite people? Are they your friends? Are they your family? They could be like-minded individuals. These could be people you admire or respect. Your favorite people could be people who make you laugh and make you smile, people that you love, people you enjoy giving to or caring for, and how that feels to help someone else and be of assistance. You could think about your favorite political party, but okay, maybe we shouldn't talk about that. Let's stay calm. Maybe we shouldn't go there at this point. But now I want you to wave your piece of paper in front of you. You're waving it around, and I want to congratulate you because you are now conserved. I want to know, now that you're conserved, if you feel less hungry. Think about your favorite food that you just thought about. Would it cause you not to eat that food? Could it prevent you from loving any of those things less? Did it suddenly make you a Republican? We shouldn't talk about political parties, but the question is, does this piece of paper, does it pave the way? Does it change how you feel? Does it change your needs? Do your needs suddenly change because of this piece of paper? Most significantly, does it pave the way to get those things that represent who you are and what you want in your life? And where are the tools? Does this piece of paper with the big C on it, does it come with a box of tools? Some of the tools you might need to get your dream. What are some of those things that you thought about that you needed to get your dream? I think often the message isn't conveyed that there are ways to teach maximum independence. And so does that piece of paper come with all the things that it takes to get you there? Often, conservatorship can, and this piece of paper with the big C on it, it can be presented in a way that can be perhaps implemented, not implemented, to deliver whatever it takes. But rather it can become a wall for people with disabilities. And if you think about it, I'm a parent, I'm an advocate. I heard about conservatorship prior to becoming an advocate. I learned more about it after becoming an advocate. And through the definition of conservatorship, part of it is to teach maximum independence. But I think what we learn as parents and as providers is that really it's delivered in a way to limit a person's independence. And it's presented as a way to protect someone, whereas what I believe really protects people is teaching them skills. So this is really an invisible wall of protection to some extent, because we've already established that it can be an invisible wall, right? We all have self-determination, we all have human nature, and a piece of paper that says conservatorship may or may not protect someone. So it's not going to change our needs. It is likely may or may not have the tools that we need that come along with that. So when do we choose to build walls to keep people separate and safe? When do we do that? Think about that. So have we asked all the questions? When there is no other way, when we have asked all the questions, all of those questions that apply to you and your dreams, and we have done whatever it takes with our circle of support, then we consider conservatorship, perhaps. Or we may not. So first, we want to consider supported decision-making, and last, conservatorship. As Jonathan Martinez puts it, what else have we tried? And really, if you liken this back to the days of institutions, there was one option. There was just institutions. And really, for most of us, all we've heard about is conservatorship. There hasn't been alternatives and options presented to us. And so just like the least restrictive environment and a continuum of school placement options, supported decision-making can be the least restrictive option, and conservatorship can be the most restrictive option. So we always want to start with the least restrictive option. And so supported decision-making is defined as people working with friends, family members, and professionals to help them understand the situations and choices they face so they can make their own decisions. And so I really wanted to stop here and just remind everyone that there is so much information in the previous webinars that's really important for you to know, additional materials that will give you a stronger foundation in your understanding of supported decision making. So your life, your needs, your dreams. These are some of the questions we should be asking. What are some of those questions we should be asking? They're handpicked uniquely according to you, your dreams, your life, your needs. And I keep bringing it back to you and your needs. And why do I say that? Because so many times, I say this as a parent and an advocate, we are not putting ourselves in another person's shoes, really. We often think of people with disabilities as separate and different from us. And I think of a term when I see a woman in a grocery store in a wheelchair, and I think, I am she is me. Just like my sister was in a wheelchair. We are the same. We are different, and we are the same. And we can't assume to know how someone else would feel, but we can assume to know how we ourselves might feel in any particular situation. So what is the harm in taking choice and decision making away from people with disabilities? And what could be the harm to you? So I'm going to now pick your favorite food. What was it? I'm going to pick that for you. I'm going to choose the place you're going to go and the people you're going to live with and who you're going to talk to. And you may or may not have the opportunity and the tools so that you can express those things to me. I may choose your dreams for you. I know what they are. I know it. I can tell from the look on your face. I can tell. I can just tell what you need. And I think this is what you want. And these are some really great dreams. And you should be excited, right? I'm helping you. And so I think we need to be really careful, right? Because what I know your dreams are and what you want is purple hair, you want a Star Trek costume, you want to go to the Science Museum, you want to do all these great scientific things, and you want to shred paper every day. That's exactly what you want, right? So you're not happy with that? I think that so many times, I say this as a well-meaning parent, that we are being helpful to someone with a disability. We really, truly think we know what they want, and maybe they have expressed that, perhaps they haven't. And we don't understand sometimes the reaction that we get from people with disabilities when we assume to know what they would want. And often it's based on what's available in the environment, at school, in the community, and not really based on the individual and what we've enabled them and empowered them to say. So if we're really going to go down this road of supported decision making, and we're creating these teams and we're setting the wheels in motion, we want to know, how can we start? How can we get the supports and services that we have identified? And so I'm going to come back to the first webinar that I did that really talks about how supported decision making is implemented in preschools in Washington, D.C. And supported decision making is really self-determination, it's self-advocacy, it's problem-solving skills, and that's something that can happen at a very young age, up to an older age. And of course, we really identify more intensely for people who are going to adulthood in the transition services and transition plans through the school and in IEPs. And also we want to identify services through vocational rehabilitation, through the regional center, and through IPPs and person-centered planning. And I'll touch again a little bit on person-centered planning, but we do want to make sure that we talk about supported decision-making and whether we're using that option and how we're going to implement that before we get to person-centered planning. And so basically, supported decision-making is part of what's already being implemented in the schools, in your regional center services, and it's in the regulations. It's student-led IEPs, it's self-determination, it's self-advocacy, it's informed choice, and person-centered planning. So we want to ask ourselves, who is the individual and what are their needs? What supports and services do we already have? So again, we're going to look at our IEP, our person-centered plan, our IPP, our employment plan, and see what supports and services are already there. And of course, the regulations in Department of Rehabilitation and in IDEA enable interagency collaboration, which we have called the Coordinated Circle of Support. And we've talked about how important that is, that there is communication amongst agencies and that there isn't actually helpful to them, that there isn't duplication of services, and we can be sure that the individual has everything that they need. I was at an ARC Public Policy conference recently where they talked about a thing called the Blueprint in the state of California, and it was really great to hear the directors of developmental disabilities and the State Department of Education for Special Education and Department of Rehabilitation talking about a 5-year plan and really collaborating and coordinating to make sure that people are employed, people with disabilities. So where are the gaps between their needs and their supports? So we're going to start by, there are many tools and resources that you can access, and those can be found on supporteddecisionmaking.org. There are many different tools there, resources, but we're going to start with a paper that I recently wrote with Jonathan Martinez, who's the Senior Director of Law and Public Policy at the Burton Blatt Institute, and he speaks nationally and won the landmark case for Jenny Hatch in 2013, which enabled her to practice supported decision-making in her life and with the supports and people she had in her life rather than to be conserved. So in the paper called Supported Decision-Making Teams, Setting the Wheels in Motion, there are forms available there that can help you identify who the team is. There is also a supported decision-making intake form that can help guide the team as to what the current services are and what services are needed. And again, there are so many resources, and we've talked a lot about this, and there are resources included in the first webinar. We talk about how there are supported decision-making agreements, how they can be folded into an IEP, IPP, and into powers of attorney, and HIPAA agreements, financial agreements. So there's a lot of really great information available to you. So if you have not yet explored that website, I really encourage you to do that. So the reality with supported decision-making is that we are not alone. And as a parent, I think it's felt very daunting looking into the future of our children. We think, okay, what's going to happen later on in life? And who is going to be around when I'm gone? And really, I feel implementing supported decision-making with my children that I am not alone and that we are each on a single pathway, knowing the individual's unique abilities and teaching them maximum independence. And I really have peace of mind knowing that I'm not in this alone and that I have people with different skills and people who my daughter want to be on her team to help her be independent and live fulfilled life. So as we begin to exercise supported decision-making and setting up supported decision-making teams, we do that by learning what the person wants, who the person works with now, and who else the person can work with. And how can we determine that? So who the person wants to be on their team. We've identified in our paper the people that we think should be on a team. And I did this really at 4 o'clock in the morning, thinking of my daughter, thinking of supported decision making, and identifying who it is that she might want to be on the team, and how do we determine who that person is. And that is a person that we trust, that the individual trusts, that is willing to go on this journey of supported decision making. That is someone who accepts and supports the individual and the family. It should be someone who has knowledge in a particular area we are seeking to include in the supported decision making agreement. And that can be particularly something that the individual, other people on the team aren't as familiar with. So we want to seek out the expertise that may help our individual to achieve their dreams and goals and have maximum independence. And somebody that can be available long-term. And supported decision making and teams are very dynamic. They change over time. But we want someone who's willing to be on board. Excuse me. And we also want to have somebody who's open to novel ideas, somebody who's flexible, and someone who can really make the person the agenda. And so it's been discussed before that we really like this to be somebody who is unpaid, and there are times that that can be a person that is a provider that people may need to have in their lives depending on what their needs are. And for my daughter, I thought, okay, we need to have somebody who's experienced in behavior and somebody who could help her with her speech and help her learn the social skills that she would like to have. And I thought, okay, well, those are the things that I think she needs, that I think would help. But what are her individual dreams? What does she really want to do with her life? Where does she want to go? Who does she want to be with? Where does she want to work? And who would she want those people to be on the team? And so I just really had an aha moment. And so we have a woman who my children adore, who is an educational psychologist, and she is on Kylie's supported decision-making team. And we also have a speech therapist. And my daughter has a current speech therapist, and she had some previous speech therapists. And I thought, who would she want? And so I talked to her about it, and she just really had this team of speech therapists that went out into the community with her and were very social and really listened to her and treated her in a mature manner like a gal pal and helping her learn the skills that she needed. And so when I talked to her about it and about who these people were, she was just so excited and very happy to have these people on her team. And so we are on this journey, and we're teaching her and implementing supported decision-making skills, and she's teaching us and telling us what she wants in her life. And so that's how we began. And so what are the goals, and how do we work on them as a team? And so, you know, we really want to think big picture. When we get into supported decision-making, you can think of all the goals that a person can have. And so I'm going to show you some tools that will help to really focus that in. What are the person's goals? What do they need to reach those goals? And what's in the way of them reaching those goals? Who can help, and how can they help? And so when you're thinking about that, as I shared earlier, you want to consider the life areas. The person with the disability, the supporters and friends in their lives, what life areas do we think could benefit them in achieving their dreams? And some of these can be finances, medical, life areas, housing, employment can be consideration, education, speech and language, interpersonal social skills, behavior, self-care, activities of daily living, organization, recreation and leisure, and I'm sure there are many other areas. And so as I was planning this for my own daughter, I really saw how there's overlap in these needs. And so a speech and language therapist may interlap with the behavior therapist, and somebody else may be able to help with sensory needs that interacts with fine motor skills. And so we want to consider where these areas overlap and how we can simplify and find people that the individual wants to have in their life. So how often should the team meet? This really needs to be flexible, and we really want to be open to what is going to work, what is manageable. This is a process, and the point is to set the wheels in motion, to get started. And so we start where we are. And so what does the individual need, and what do the potential supported decision-making team members need? And that's important to gather that information and to start to do what works, and to meet in the beginning as frequently as you can, and to start where you are. I think it's really important to nurture and foster the relationship with the team members and work at a pace that works for each person. I am a mother of 3 children with special needs, and so I'm always very cognizant that we want to make sure that we're thinking of the needs of everyone on the team and the individual, of course, always. But I think it's really important that there is a natural relationship that occurs there where everyone is getting their needs met. And so these are some of the forms that are available on in the paper, Setting the Wheels in Motion. And we talk about how can I help a person use supported decision making. And so that starts with a brainstorm, perhaps at 4 o'clock in the morning. And really just writing down ideas that team members may have, certainly that the individual can have, and we're going to talk about more about how we can capture what an individual's input is. There are assessments that have been recently published by the ACLU that are available on their website that can be very helpful with supported decision making. And what decisions are they already making? I have really focused on this in previous webinars, and every person with an individual, every person with a disability, I believe, makes choices every day. There is some choice that every single person makes every day. So those decisions range and vary from each person's needs as a person with exceptional abilities. And there are choices that are made every day. So I really want to focus on what are they already doing? What do they prefer? And how do they make those decisions? Do they use AAC? Are they verbal? Do they use gestures? Do they use sign language? Do they like to write? How do they make these decisions? And which choices and decisions are important to them? So we know what decisions and choices are important to us, but what are important to them? And then we talk about in our previous webinar having a supported decision-making agreement, and those are also available on the National Supported Decision-Making website, and there's more information available on the ACLU website. Just need a drink of water when I'm here. And so, because everyone accesses information differently, we also have this same information presented in the paper in question format in a chart. So basically, these are the same questions that we just asked. And then we have who should be on the team. So we just talked about that. So we're going to list trusted and willing people, and are these people that accept and support our individual? So I talked about myself as a parent thinking of who I thought should be on the team and what areas I thought were important, but it's important that we always listen to the individual and that we make sure that it's somebody that is accepting and wanting to support the individual to make choices and to become independent. And so what knowledge and expertise does this person have? Are they available long-term? We just talked about this. And are they flexible and willing to make the individual the agenda? That's very important. This again is the format that's available in the paper. Same questions, just visually presented differently. And I will say this, we provided this information as a guideline and a map for people, but I think it's important that this is presented in a way for each individual person and how they learn and how they can participate. Part 3, so what are the goals for this person? Do they have written goals in their IEP, in their IPP? What does the individual want? And honestly, that can be very different. What is written down in a person's plan versus what that individual really wants can be very divergent. And so where do these overlap? Where do these areas overlap? And what is needed? Where are the gaps? What are the challenges and what seem to be the obstacles? Who can help with those challenges and obstacles? How can they help? So we want to capture that, and again, multiple formats are available here. And then the last leg here is, I'm sorry about that, how can we have the team members get together and address the individual's needs and the needs of all the potential team members? What can work? When could be a first meeting date? That's important. That seems very obvious, but we're talking about what can work, what can work, what can work. Set a date. When can we do this? And how can we do this? Could it be via Skype? Is it going to be in person? What does the individual need? And how can we foster these relationships? So I think it's really important that the connection of the team and that we're all working together towards the same purpose. And again, what are the unique needs that our individual wants addressed? And stretching for possibilities. Everything that I have learned as a parent and as an advocate is about stretching for possibilities. We're used to doing that. So who can these people be? And if you cannot identify a person, how can you ask for help? How can you reach out to your parent training center? How can you reach out to your regional center? What is available in the community? How can we develop a team for this person? And to really not give up in doing that. So I have included some, oh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. There is also an intake form available in the paper, Setting the Wheels in Motion. And this is really for the team to use to identify what the current supports and services are for the individual, what their health care coverage is, and that could probably be further defined in terms of their needs. What school are they at? What program and placement? What are their strengths? What are their challenges? what is identified in their IEP as accommodations and modifications. Who are the service providers? And then also private. What are the services that are being provided privately? Who's the agency, the therapist? These are all the things that often the individual or the parent family will know, and it's really important that we communicate all of this to the team, and it can be really difficult to do that. So this is just a tool to capture all that information so we can all be on the same page. And so it also includes information about regional center services and the frequency and duration of those services, briefly describe the transition plan, what's included there, and of course, I would say you always want to include all these plans and forward the entire plan to the team. But this is a really good summary that can help people get started. It identifies the needs housing-wise, what are the inclusion opportunities they have in the community, do they travel on the bus, do they travel on the train, are they able to drive, are they independent? That's really important, I think, in all of this, to ask in all of these plans, what are they able to do independently? And if they're not able to do it independently, what do we need to put in place to have them practice maximum independence according to their unique individual abilities? Again, what decisions are they already making? And what skills do they have the potential to learn? So this is a really important question, and we talk about this in my previous webinar about presumed competence and what skills do they have the potential to learn, because decision-making skills are built over time, and wherever we are is where we start. And someone who may not be able to learn long-term everything there is to know about finance can still be independent to the maximum of their abilities and have an ATM card, have an account with someone else's name on it. But going back to presumed competence, we really want to presume skills until they've been proven otherwise, and then start from there. And I gave an example in a previous webinar where I assumed that I knew what my son was going to say and what he knew and what he thought, and he was able to answer questions that I had no idea he really knew. I was sure he didn't know, as a matter of fact. And so it was a powerful moment for me, and I think it's really important for every person to really explore further what each person has the potential to learn. And for each individual with disabilities, I think often they may not be used to making decisions and making choices. And so even in situations where the families and supporters want to implement supported decision making, they may not have been implementing that to that degree previously. And so often it's an adjustment for a person who has the skills to become more independent. They're not used to being independent. They're not used to making as many choices. And so we want to present all the opportunities we can to each person and let them go at their own pace and learn the way they can learn and how they want to learn. We talk about the team members and what are the next steps until our next meeting. So in the beginning, I think on the very first page, it says what today's date is and where are we going to meet next. So we're going to go through this the first time, and then who are we going to invite to the next meeting, and what are our next steps? What do we need to do? And who's going to take those next steps? And start simply. What are the very simple steps that we can take right now so that we are moving, the wheels are in motion, we're moving forward? And so here are some tools that I really wanted to share with you for people who are nonverbal or who may have intellectual or developmental disabilities. Many ways that we can teach people to make decisions and tools that we can offer can be through social stories and visuals, using plain language and visual supported decision-making agreements. And, you know, we talked about what it took for you to have your dream come true, and that took consistency and ritual and routine and a plan and goals and a map. And I think consistency for many people with intellectual disability and routine over time is so important. So these are things that you can be talking about every day at a young age or whatever age your individual is at, and explain it in a way that they can understand. And so this is an example, and I actually had a video, and so I wanted to show you this AAC device and how it is programmed for Kylie to express that she has a supported decision-making team. And unfortunately, we couldn't hear the volume on it. But as you can see, it says, "I have something to say. My name is Kylie. I'm 18 years old, and I have a supporting decision-making team that helps me understand the choices and decisions I make in my life." And so, as you can see, it's presented here simply, visually, and when it speaks, it has more language to help Kylie facilitate her communication. So I want my mom and dad to help me with my school decisions, choices, and decisions. And so this can be modified for medical decisions, for financial decisions, and obviously for each individual. And then to explain, because it's really important that we show what our individual knows and what choices and decisions they can make, and that they understand what is being said here. So at school, Kylie works with a teacher, she works with an aide, she works with an OT, a speech therapist, a vocational therapist, an APE person, a behavior therapist, and all these people help her learn the skills and tools to live and work in her community. And so she can access this page and touch it and show what she wants. And so it's really interesting. What's missing here also is yes, I agree, no, I don't agree, that this is what she wants, and how can she sign? So how can each individual person sign? Would it be a handprint? Will they be able to sign? Will they gesture? Will it be a thumbprint? And we'll talk about data and video and how important that can be in documenting how people make choices and decisions, and that this is what they want. And if it isn't what they want. And so if it isn't what they want, then they should be able to, you know, implement these things, go to an IEP meeting and say, okay, mom and dad are not here, my friend or family or supporter is not here, I'm by myself, and how do I feel? Do I want somebody on my team at this point? And I think that it can be really powerful, a teaching tool to show people with disabilities, especially before they reach age 18, what it's like, and for them to decide, yes, actually I do need help. Here I am in the IEP meeting and I do need help. Another great tool that I really want everybody to be aware of is the Communication Bill of Rights that was adopted by ASHA, which is the Speech and Hearing Association that many speech and language pathologists are a member of. So all people with a disability of any extent or severity have a basic right to affect through communication the conditions of their existence. And this is just part of what is included in the ASHA Communication Bill of Rights. And I included a website here because there are visuals, and there are many different versions, and so I didn't include them here. There are versions where people have photos, and it says, I have the right to express myself. I have the right to be heard. and there's a whole list, I think 10 different items. It's really important that will really help teach people with intellectual disability what making choices and decisions and self-expression and self-determination is. And I think that's really important to be consistent for those people that need to learn in that way, that this is something we can be doing every day, that we can talk about, and that everybody knows about in their lives. Another way to facilitate learning what their dreams are is visual. So, I mean, many adults have done vision and dream boards, and this can be very powerful. Going out and letting the individual who could be a typically developing adult, or it could be somebody who's more severely affected with a disability. This is a really powerful tool to go buy magazines, for instance, that are in the areas that they want to dream about. What is it that they want to do? Who is it that they want to be with in their life? And I did this exercise with my daughter, and she went and picked out a magazine with a man and a woman in a wedding dress and with their tie on, going to their ceremony. And it's a very important area, I think, to explore, especially for people who communicate with visuals. And there are so many individuals like that. And so this can be a really fun, empowering visual tool for people to use to express their hopes and dreams. And I have another example here that's a little simpler. Learning to drive, learning to love someone, to be in a home, to grow vegetables and be healthy or eat healthy. So these are a few examples of what you can be doing with your individual and what they can be doing as well. So person-centered planning. Person-centered planning is something that is included in the IPP, the individual program plan, through the regional center. And person-centered planning really focuses on the person's interest. And what the difference is between person-centered planning and supported decision-making, although they're very akin and very much alike, is person-centered planning focuses on what's important to the person and what's important for the person, or versus what's important for the person. So these are good areas to identify, and it's also important to identify whether we're going to be implementing supported decision-making along the way and before creating this person-centered plan, because often what can happen is that someone decides, well, I think it's more important for you to do this than what's important to you. So it's vital that we are clear about what choices people can make and what choices they can make with assistance. What is it that they need to make the choices they can make to the maximum of their unique abilities? And so person-centered planning also talks about what works, what doesn't work, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and what others need to know to best support me. And there are so many tools, visual tools, that are available in person-centered planning, and you can access that, I'm sure, on many websites. I included here Parents Helping Parents, person-centered thinking training tools. And so some of them talk about matching the characteristics of a person and the person's interests that would be supporting them, and who would be a good match for that, and what kind of communication do they need, and mapping tools, identifying the specific roles and responsibilities of different people. Again, what's working, what's not working, and there are mapping tools to create a picture of who the person is in their life. So that is also another tool for us to access. And I really want you to remember, and for all of us to remember, what it takes, whatever it takes. And that all of this can be programmed into an AAC device. And why would we do that? we identified that achieving our goals and dreams requires commitment and consistency and systematic structure and support. And it's really important that we ask for the assistance. I know for people who work with people who are nonverbal and may use AAC devices, that they need help in customizing that. And those supports and services can be available through your IEP. There are AAC teams and speech therapy consult that can really help you to do that. They often need, people with disabilities often need a more intense, robust set of interventions that can help them be independent. And that's exactly what they deserve. Whatever it takes, to the maximum of their unique abilities to make decisions and choices and be self-determined in their life. So teams and more teams, I think I talked about this. If you build supported decision-making into the goals, and we've talked about this in previous webinars, that can be under self-advocacy, problem-solving, decision-making, self-determination goals, and all the different plans that are available to our individuals. But when you do that, now you have professional teams helping you to implement your supported decision-making goals. And in a previous webinar, I talked about the newest update from the Department of Education Transition Guide that was as of January 2017, and it really talks about having high expectations and defining what self-determination is and decision-making. It talks about supported employment and how even the most affected individuals need to have the support to be employed. And so I was very excited to see that. And this is really empowering. Again, we are not alone. We don't often think about some of these skills, and they can actually be standalone goals, self-advocacy, problem-solving, and it can be folded into goals that are already in place, social goals, organization goals, study skills goals, and how can we track that? And as an advocate, always have data collection in all of your goals, and I think it can be really exciting for all the members of the team and, of course, for the individual, and that we have the goals be I-centered. I will do this. I will work on this, and that they know what their goals are. And so often we may need to simplify how that is presented in a visual to an individual so that they can participate. Data, and more data. And video. There hasn't been a legal case challenging a supported decision-making agreement, but that's why we also recommend that you fold it into binding contracts such as an IEP, such as a power of attorney, such as a IPP. And I think it's important for people with intellectual disability and for all individuals with disabilities to take data on what their decision-making abilities are, and to take video of what their skills are. And I find this so empowering as an advocate in general. Often individuals with disabilities may present differently in one environment versus another environment, and video can be so incredibly powerful and capture the moments in the environment that works for that person to show their maximum abilities. And so evidence, that's what we want. Concrete, visual, powerful data and evidence. A picture is worth 1,000 words, and showing what those opportunities are, and to start where they are and to continue building on that. And to film the supported decision-making agreement by the individual on multiple occasions across different settings with different people, perhaps in different ways. And so I wanted to include some more information here for people who were not present at the previous webinars. You can get more information about the Americans with Disability Act and Section 504 on the Parent Hub website listed here, and the Individual Education Plan, and the rights bestowed upon people or IDEA. And so there's a lot of information that's important for us to review. I mentioned the transition guide. And if you are denied supports and services, that you start with your local parent training information center. If you're in the Bay Area, that could be supports for families, that could be DREF, that could be parents helping parents. And there is an extensive list of resources in the first webinar that is included, and also in the paper, Supported Decision-Making Teams, Setting the Wheels in Motion has a separate resource list attached to it that can be very valuable. And then I also outlined how to apply for Department of Rehabilitation Services. There's a website here to access, and you can get referred through the IEP process to your regional center and also to the Department of Rehabilitation, or you can self-refer as well. And there's more information about vocational rehabilitation and how important that is, again, in previous webinars. You can also contact Disability Rights California, and there's more information, a ton of information there for you between the PTI and Disability Rights California as well. And if you need additional help, there are advocates and attorneys that can help you do that. So we're providing all the tools that we can here, and we want to encourage you to have a support team. And I also encourage you to reach out to an advocate if you need that. So how to apply for regional center services, that qualification is that the disability begins before the person's 18th birthday, that they be expected to continue indefinitely and present with a substantial disability. Eligibility is established through diagnosis, and they do an assessment. The information here, if you are not a regional center client, and I am amazed how many families that I come across that should be regional center clients that aren't. And it's really important because these services can be provided through adulthood for those who qualify. And if you are denied, there is a Office of Clients' Rights in my area. It's located right across the hallway from our regional center. They're through Disability Rights California, and they can help you with any services and supports that you may need help being provided through the regional center. So if you need even more information, you can go to the National Resource Center for Supported Decision Making. I gave you that website personally. Again, here are the parent training information centers. You can look up the Parent Hub online. That used to be called something different. That is the new name. That's a national website to help people learn about special education and the supports and services that are needed. Pete Wright and Wright's Law is a huge proponent of teaching parents the skills they need to get the supports and services for their person with an individual with a disability, and for the individual to access all of these resources as well. California Regional Centers in our area, GGRC, the East Bay Regional Center and San Andreas Regional Center. State Council for Developmental Disabilities website has great information, Disability Rights California. COPA is the Council of Parents, Attorneys, and Advocates, and I've been a member of that for many, many, many years, and it's an incredible resource. They have conferences every year. The ARC of California, who is an advocate for people with disabilities in all areas, really. They have satellite offices throughout the state of California and are very helpful in getting the supports and services and guiding you down the right path. So, I stole this from Jonathan Martinez. Remember that change is challenging and it's worth it. He included this in his webinar, and I just love it. And it is my direct experience. We were not promised ease. The purpose of life is not ease. It is to choose and to act upon the choice. In that task, we are not measured by outcomes. We are measured only by our daring, our effort, and our resolve. And that's for every single individual, and that's for individuals with disabilities, because we are the same. And I want to thank you for being with us today. I've included website information for the Setting the Wheels in Motion paper, which I believe the Dale Law Firm will make these slides available. There's also a transition guide that I contributed to called What's Next, a Self-Advocate's Guided Tour Through Transition for Parents and Other Supporters. That was written by Melissa Cooper, who is an amazing person, and she is on the board of the Special Hope Foundation. And that's available on the UCSF website. So I just really want to thank all of you again for being here, for stretching, for doing what it takes, and thank the Dale Law Firm and the National Resource Center for Supported Decision Making for all the tools to make this possible. Thank you.
Well, I certainly learned a lot through all of this, and I know here that there's a lot of information, so we'll make sure that Ellen sends that out to the group, and this will also be on the Achieving Independence YouTube channel here, which you can find at youtube.com/C for channel /Achieving Independence here, where you will find this in a number of the playlists, including on conservatorships and alternatives here. Also, I would invite you to subscribe to the channel for future programs here. So anyway, Suzanne, thank you for such a thorough presentation here. And any last words before we're done?
I just want to, I don't know if I made my email available, but that is SuzanneMFrancisco@gmail.com. And if you have any questions, you can let me know. Again, Suzanne, SUZANNE, mfrancisco@gmail.com. And feel free to reach out and ask for support in what you may need to get the wheels set in motion.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for so much useful information here. And with that, here, I guess we will close this out if I can figure out how to turn this off. So,
Thank you so much.
See you later. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.